On the morning of May 16, 2006, employees working inside the historic Belvedere Hotel in downtown Baltimore, Maryland, made a discovery that would become one of the most debated mysteries in modern American true crime. In a little-used conference room on a lower level of the building, they found the body of Rey Rivera. Above the room was a large hole in the hotel's roof, leading investigators to believe Rivera had fallen from an extraordinary height.
But almost immediately, the physical evidence raised difficult questions. How did he reach the point from which he supposedly fell?
Why were some of his personal belongings found largely undamaged nearby? And what was the meaning of a cryptic note later discovered taped behind a computer in his home? Nearly 2 decades later, despite countless investigations, documentaries, and online discussions, the Rey Rivera case continues to divide experts and captivate millions.
Today, we're reconstructing the known facts of the investigation, separating documented evidence from speculation,
and examining why this case remains officially unresolved. To understand why Rey Rivera's death has inspired so much debate, it's important to begin with the man himself. Friends and family described Rivera as intelligent, creative, and ambitious. Originally from California, he later moved to Baltimore with his wife, Allison Rivera. The move was influenced in part by a close friendship with Porter Stansberry,
a financial publisher whom Rivera had known for years. Rivera began writing newsletters and freelance content for Stansberry's financial publishing company. Those who knew him said he often talked about future projects and appeared excited about building a career that blended creativity with financial stability.
In the days leading up to his death, there were no widely reported signs that Rivera intended to disappear or end his life. Like many couples, Rey and Allison were discussing work, home improvements, and long-term goals.
Nothing publicly documented suggested that the events of May 2006 were expected or anticipated. Then, Rivera was at home when he received a phone call. Reports indicate that the call came through the switchboard of Stansberry's company.
Although investigators never publicly identified the individual who placed it, what happened next became one of the most significant moments in the entire case.
After answering the call, Rivera reportedly reacted with urgency. According to Allison's later accounts,
he quickly left the house, driving away in sandals and casual clothing without offering an explanation.
It would be the last time anyone close to him would see him alive. For the next several days, Rivera was considered missing.
His family searched for answers, while law enforcement attempted to determine where he had gone.
Missing person investigations often begin with simple questions. Did the individual leave voluntarily? Was there evidence of foul play?
Had anyone seen or spoken with them after they disappeared? In Rivera's case, investigators initially had few concrete answers. Then, on May 22, 6 days after his disappearance, employees at the Belvedere Hotel noticed damage on the roof of a lower conference area. The hole had apparently gone unnoticed because it was located on a section of the roof that was not routinely accessed. When authorities investigated, they discovered Rivera's body inside the room below. The location immediately drew attention. The Belvedere Hotel is one of Baltimore's most recognizable historic buildings,
standing approximately 13 stories tall. Investigators believed Rivera had fallen from a considerable height.
But determining the exact point of origin proved challenging. Several possible locations were discussed during the investigation, including the hotel's rooftop. However, some observers questioned whether the distance between the roof's edge and the hole in the lower roof made such a trajectory physically difficult. Others argued that while unusual, it was not necessarily impossible. These differing interpretations would fuel years of public debate. Another aspect of the scene that attracted attention involved Rivera's personal belongings. His eyeglasses and cell phone were reportedly found near the hole in the roof.
According to public reports, both items appeared to have sustained relatively limited visible damage despite the severe impact that resulted in Rivera's fatal injuries.
Some people viewed this as suspicious, while others cautioned that the condition of objects after a fall can vary depending on numerous factors, including how and where they land. Importantly, the publicly available evidence has not established that the condition of these items proves or disproves any particular theory.
As investigators processed the scene, the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner conducted an autopsy. The examination documented multiple traumatic injuries consistent with a significant fall.
However, when considering the totality of the circumstances, the medical examiner ultimately classified the manner of death as undetermined rather than suicide, accident, or homicide. That distinction has played a major role in the enduring mystery surrounding the case. An undetermined classification does not identify cause beyond dispute.
Instead, It reflects that the available evidence was insufficient to confidently place the death into one of the standard legal categories.
While investigators examined the physical evidence, another unexpected discovery added a new layer of intrigue. During a search of Rivera's home, family members found a small folded note taped behind his computer. At first glance, it appeared unlike anything investigators expected. The note contained a dense collection of names, movie references, quotations, and seemingly disconnected ideas. It mentioned films, historical figures, organizations, and individuals known to Rivera. Because the text was printed in an unusually small font and folded into a compact form, some observers described it as resembling a tiny booklet. The contents of the note quickly became one of the most discussed aspects of the case. To some readers, it appeared deeply personal and symbolic.
Others interpreted it as a collection of brainstorming ideas, writing exercises, or inspirational references. Still others suggested it might reflect coded thinking.
Despite years of analysis by investigators, journalists, psychologists, and internet communities, no consensus has emerged regarding its meaning. It is important to note that the existence of the note alone does not establish any specific conclusion about Rivera's state of mind. People create personal writings for many reasons, and without additional context,
Finding a definitive interpretation is difficult. While the note remains intriguing, its significance in relation to Rivera's death has never been conclusively determined.
another point frequently discussed involves access to the Belvedere Hotel. Investigators examined how Rivera could have reached whichever location he ultimately fell from. Questions arose regarding roof access, security procedures, and whether anyone might have accompanied him. Public reporting has indicated that investigators explored these issues.
But no publicly available evidence has definitively established exactly how Rivera reached the location from which he fell.
Authorities reportedly confirmed that the call had been routed through the switchboard of Stansberry's financial publishing company. However, the specific individual who placed the call, according to widely reported accounts, the company later informed employees not to speak publicly about the investigation without legal representation. Such advice is not uncommon in cases involving ongoing investigations, but it nevertheless became another point of public interest and speculation. For Rivera's family, the unanswered questions were devastating. They were not simply trying to understand how he died. They were trying to understand why he had left home so suddenly and what had happened during the hours before his death. Every unexplained detail, the phone call,
The rooftop questions, the unusual note, and the undetermined ruling became another piece of a puzzle that refused to come together.
As months turned into years, the Rey Rivera case gradually transformed from a local investigation into one of America's most widely discussed unsolved mysteries. Books, podcasts, investigative articles, and eventually a major streaming documentary introduced millions of viewers to the case, each examining the
But despite the widespread attention, one fact remained unchanged. Investigators had never reached a definitive conclusion that answered every major question.
And that uncertainty is exactly what continues to keep the Rey Rivera case alive in the minds of investigators, journalists, and true crime audiences across the United States. As public interest in Rey Rivera's death continued to grow, the investigation entered a phase familiar to many unresolved cases. The physical evidence had been collected.
Interviews had been conducted, and official reports had been written. Yet the central question remained unanswered. What actually happened during Rey Rivera's final hours?
None, however, has been conclusively proven, and that distinction is essential. A true crime documentary should separate what investigators confirmed from what remains speculation. One theory discussed over the years, supporters of this explanation point to the location of his body and the extensive injuries documented during the autopsy. However,
The case is complicated by the fact that the Maryland Office of the Chief Medical Examiner classified the manner of death as undetermined, not suicide.
an undetermined ruling does not mean homicide, nor does it rule out suicide or an accident. Instead, it reflects that the available evidence did not allow investigators to confidently place the death into a single legal category. Another area of discussion has centered on the physics of the fall. Independent analysts, engineers, and online commentators have debated whether the trajectory required to reach the hole in the lower roof would have been difficult or even improbable if Rivera had jumped.
Some argue the distance would have required an unusually long horizontal leap, while others note that without precise measurements, wind conditions,
and additional forensic reconstruction, it is impossible to reach a definitive conclusion. Importantly, no publicly released official report has established that the trajectory was impossible. As a result, this aspect of the case remains a topic of debate rather than a settled fact. The mysterious phone call Rivera received shortly before leaving home has also remained one of the most significant unanswered questions, where Rivera had been working. Publicly available information has never identified the specific caller.
For Rivera's family, understanding who placed that call and what was said could potentially clarify why he left his home so suddenly.
Yet despite years of interest, that question has never been publicly resolved. Attention also continued to focus on the unusual note. Many people attempted to interpret it as a code or hidden message. Others suggested it resembled brainstorming notes from someone interested in storytelling or screenwriting. Investigators have never publicly announced that the note contained evidence of a crime, nor have they stated that it explained Rivera's death.
Its true meaning remains unknown, making it one of the most intriguing, but also one of the most misunderstood, pieces of evidence in the case.
As the years passed, the case reached an even wider audience after being featured in a popular documentary series, introducing the mystery to a new generation of viewers. The episode introduced millions of viewers to the case, presenting interviews with family members, investigators, and experts while highlighting the unanswered questions surrounding Rivera's death. The documentary renewed public interest and inspired countless online discussions, podcasts, and independent analyses. While the episode explored several possibilities, it also emphasized an important point. Despite years of investigation, there is still no definitive explanation supported by conclusive evidence. One reason the case continues to resonate with audiences is that it challenges assumptions. Many investigations eventually produce a clear narrative supported by physical evidence, witness testimony, or confessions.
Each explanation appears to answer some questions while leaving others unresolved. That uncertainty has fueled years of debate among investigators, journalists, engineers,
and members of the public. For Rivera's family, however, this is not simply an intellectual puzzle. It is the story of a husband, son, brother, and friend whose death has never been fully explained. Families in cases like this often describe living with two separate losses.
The loss of a loved one and the loss of certainty. Without definitive answers, every anniversary and every birthday and every...
The Rey Rivera case also illustrates the challenges investigators face when physical evidence does not clearly point in one direction. Forensic science can answer many questions, but it cannot answer every question. Even in an era of advanced technology, there are cases in which investigators must acknowledge uncertainty rather than force a conclusion unsupported by the evidence. While that uncertainty can be frustrating for the public, it reflects an important principle of professional investigations. Conclusions should be based on evidence, not speculation.
More than 19 years after Rivera's death, the case continues to attract attention from new generations of true crime enthusiasts.
Online forums regularly revisit the evidence. Engineers debate the fall trajectory. Writers analyze the cryptic note.
Viewers return to the Netflix documentary searching for clues they may have missed. Yet despite thousands of hours of discussion,
the fundamental facts remain remarkably consistent. Rey Rivera disappeared after receiving a phone call. 6 days later,
he was found deceased inside the Belvedere Hotel after falling through the roof of a conference room.
The medical examiner ruled the manner of death undetermined, and several important questions, including the meaning of the note and the identity of the caller, remain unanswered. Perhaps that is why the case has endured for so long. It is not because there is overwhelming evidence supporting one dramatic theory over another.
Rather, it is because the available evidence leaves room for multiple interpretations without conclusively confirming any of them.
Whether future developments will provide new answers remains uncertain. Advances in forensic analysis, newly discovered witnesses, or previously unavailable information have helped solve other cold cases decades after they occurred. It is impossible to predict whether the same will happen here.
Until then, the Rey Rivera case remains officially unresolved, reminding us that not every
to acknowledge both what is known and what is not.
The documented evidence tells us where Rey Rivera was found and establishes many aspects of the timeline leading to his death.
At the same time, it leaves critical questions unanswered. Responsible reporting requires respecting that distinction rather than presenting speculation as fact. As viewers, it's natural to search for a single explanation that ties every detail together. Human beings are drawn to complete stories with clear beginnings, middles, and endings.
But real investigations do not always provide that certainty. Sometimes the evidence is incomplete. Sometimes key witnesses are unavailable.
And sometimes, despite the best efforts of investigators, the truth remains just beyond reach. For now, the Rey Rivera case stands as one of America's most enduring unsolved mysteries. Not because of sensational claims or elaborate conspiracy theories, but because the available evidence has never fully explained the events of that May evening in Baltimore.
Until new evidence emerges, the unanswered questions surrounding his final hours continue to invite careful examination,
thoughtful discussion, and a commitment to distinguishing verified facts from speculation. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy carefully researched true crime documentaries that focus on verified evidence,
Documented timelines, and respectful storytelling, consider subscribing for more in-depth explorations of America's most compelling criminal investigations and unsolved mysteries.
every case deserves to be examined with accuracy, context, and respect for the real people whose lives were forever changed.